Good evening, board. This is group three, and this is our presentation on the All-Star Brand Asia case study. My name is Ty Roseborough.
And I'm David Karen.
Trevor McDaniel.
And Ritesh Sheth.
Today, I'd like to take a little time to talk with you guys a little bit about the company background and the vision of where we're going to go on our marketing strategy, specifically our regional marketing strategy, how we came up with our plant location and the justification for that, and then dive a little bit more into the country entry strategy with relation to competition, SKU rationalization, channel identification, our marketing strategy, and then wrap up with our strategy results and what we learned in our case study. We're currently a multinational consumer brand that produces both prescription and over-the-counter products to our customer base. We're formed in 1924 and have grown to an $8.9 billion corporation. The total world toothpaste market accounts for $20 billion. Within that, so the attractiveness of the Asian market and the potential for growth in these areas was a driving factor of where we wanted to place our products. Initially, with an unknown brand, we employed a push strategy where we aggressively targeted these channels to gain our brand equity. We've leveraged that brand equity in the later years with our ad campaigns and strategic pricing to the market. Specifically, we looked at markets that had high projected annual growth in the India, China, and Japan market.
Again, good evening, board. So this next slide, we're going to talk through plant location and how we landed on Thailand. To be honest, this is something that our group debated back and forth pretty rigorously and eventually landed on Thailand for three primary reasons. The first of which is location, being that is centrally located in the region. As you can see on the map that's on this slide here, there are clear delivery channels to each of the respective countries in that market. Additionally, in the country insight information that was provided for all of the countries in the region, we as a group identify that fluorite is a natural resource of Thailand. And based on the documentation that was provided in the case study, we also identified that there would be a 36% reduction in manufacturing costs with Thailand, making it the clear front runner for the plant location.
Hi, it's Ritesh again. One of the first countries that we decided to enter was China. China had the largest market share at $2.9 million. Over the last 6 years, China also had 33% growth in sales. Along with that, they had the highest GDP growth at 10.3%. In terms of currency, it had the least volatile exchange rates. To start off, in period one, we targeted independent channel, hypermarket channel, and wholesale channel because they had the largest share. In terms of promotion, it mimicked our distribution channel strategy. We marketed an independent channel with 80 salespeople, in hypermarket with 150 salespeople, and in wholesale with 300 salespeople. Here again, China had the lowest sales force cost. In terms of competition, our two biggest competitors were JustCall and Local. JustCall had 20% market share, Local had 35.3% market share. At end of period 10, we had the second largest market share at 16.7%, just behind B&B, who was at 17.1%. In terms of SKU selection and pricing, we sticked with economy, white, and healthy products. We offered it in small and medium sizes, and in tube and in paste. For ad campaign, we focused on families and older demographic within the China market, and we advertised for economy and healthy products. Thank you.
Hello, this is David again, and I'm going to talk about why we chose India to enter as our second market. First off, a bunch of pros to this approach. It's the third largest market at 694.3 million manufacturing sales, has a 10.4 GDP growth, and as the second largest population at 1.189 million presented itself as a very good opportunity. In India, it had over 75% increase in sales over the last 6 years, showing a growing trend there as well, and had fewer active competitors of the top three markets to choose from. Now, we did have some issues that were considered as well, as low sales per capita at 0.58 million and second highest poverty line at 25%. So those were a couple of our concerns. Initially, we targeted for channels heavily in wholesale with a sales force of 300 people. The rationale being that the wholesalers would help to distribute the product to other areas. We also targeted independents and hypermarket. And then following up later in period 7, we also targeted the drugstore. Along with that, we promoted in each of those channels as well, and additionally added drugstores in period 7. Our competition, we really did target a couple other brands that we found to be our nearest competition. That was a Local brand and Driscoll. So we made we made a few reactionary choices based on what those brands were doing, but tried to ensure that we were competing with them to our customer base. The SKUs that we selected, we focused on economy and healthy, small and medium paste, much like we had in other markets, and also a healthy. Later, we added white as well as healthy. As far as advertising goes, we focused on family ads on the economy and white toothpaste. Each year, adapting or refreshing the ads each year to keep them always in the minds of the customer.
Good evening, board. Ty Roseborough again. Want to talk to you about our decisions on the Japan entry strategy. So some of the pros that attracted us to entering Japan were that they were the second largest in sales, and there's also a 0% tariff. They were also projected a 5% increase in the independent channel, so those made it some attractive options for us in our consideration for entering the market. Also, once entering the market, the channels that we identified to focus on were the drugstore and the hypermarkets. We also decided to promote in the drugstore and hypermarkets. Unfortunately, Japan does have one of the highest sales force costs, so we did not go heavy as far as the sales force is concerned in those respective channels. When we were looking at the competition and their offerings from a SKU standpoint, we noticed that unlike China and India, where their focus was primarily on economy, here in Japan the focus was essentially on light and healthy. As such, when we entered the market initially, we only selected a handful of SKUs in that area to really kind of test the waters for Japan. We focused our ad campaign primarily on younger and the white aspects of our offering. Thank you.
Hello again, this is David, and I'm going to present to you the current results as of period 10 and a little commentary on how we've gotten there. So year over year, just about, we've experienced growth, especially following the third, fourth period. Our current period results at the end of this period 10 is a unit sales of 1,555 million, experience a 7.4% growth over the prior year. Manufacturing sales are $2,282 million, 10.1% growth over the previous year, and we're at a 14.3% share of the market. Our gross margin is at $994 million, and again an 8.7% growth over the previous year. Our net contribution is at $460.6, and that does show a negative 5.7% growth, due to a few decisions that were made in these final couple periods, primarily with Japan, and we'll talk about that in the following slides on lessons learned. But what I do want to mention is that these growth indicators, by all standards, look they're good growth, but they are lower than we had experienced in previous periods. In fact, one of our most successful periods of growth was in period 6, which you can see highlighted in the lower left corner. In period 6, we greatly increased, or we began a greater increase of our unit sales again, experiencing a growth there, along with a higher manufactural sales growth. But really, our net contribution grew to 2,921% growth, as well as our gross margin from this period and period onward, achieving in the 20s to 30% gross margin growth. So this was a very good turning point for our brand. One of the things to also talk about is our brand equity index. Our final brand equity index as of period 10. You can see also that we have a high brand equity in India and China, in China, having a brand equity that is fluctuated here and there. India has always achieved a considerable growth. Japan, again, we'll talk about the decisions there, but we struggled to get our brand equity index up much above 60 in these final few periods. Overall performance also shows pretty good with our total manufacturer sales split out by country, achieving a really good growth consistently in China and India, and really an average. We did an acceptable growth in Japan, though we could probably do some improvement there as well.
Hi, it's Ritesh again. So now we're moved to our key learning part of the presentation. So the first question that was asked from the board was, what was our initial strategy that led to decision in period 1, 2, 3? So in retrospect, given that we followed the strategy of gaining brand equity, we should have increased our plant capacity in the second cycle to cover sales for China. We should have adjusted prices in the market to be more competitive and to increase our revenues. Also, as our board of directors identify, our initial strategy was to saturate the market and to buy share in sales. And the goal was to increase the brand awareness, build excitement with customers, and then reduce the cost of goods sold and increase volume. The second question that we were asked was, what changes did you make to that strategy in period 4 to 8 to improve performance? Why did you make those changes? So with a large accrued unsold inventory, we left the capacity unchanged in period 5. In period 6, we further reduced production, and we did not increase production again until period 9 and 10. In period 5, we decided to enter the Japan market following the same approach to China in period 1. And we made a heavy investment in advertising and sales force. In the market entered, we began to see a trend of independent sale decreasing and drugstore increasing. At the time, we had a sales force heavy in the independents, but more focused in wholesale. We began to reduce the force in independent and put more focus into the wholesale and even the drugstore. The last questions asked us, what would we have done differently if we did it again? And what did we learn from this exercise about global marketing? To start off, we would have entered many more markets in the earlier phase. Along with that, we would have maintained our pricing with our competitors to stay competitive and maintain units produced. Moreover, we would have increased our promotion and advertising budget at an earlier stage to reach out to different users within each of the channels. Moreover, we would have offered more SKUs in various different markets to reach out to new customers in all of the channels. All in all, global marketing is a complex market. It's challenging to maintain your advertising and promotional strategy across different countries. We found that by following the same strategy within China and India and Japan, we were only successful in 2 of the 3 countries. So we have to be very mindful about how we approach advertising and promotion in each of those countries. Overall, it was a great learning experience.